It appears that former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has been iced out by some top Dems. On the podcast Politics Weekly America, Pelosi said some of President Biden's allies haven't forgiven her for orchestrating the effort, some call it a silent coup, that pushed him to drop out of the race. Let's listen.
There may be some people around him who have not forgiven me for my role, but in any event, we just have to win the election. That's really my focus.
She also said this about former President Trump's chances of winning the election.
Elections are decisions. You decide to win. I decided a while ago that Donald Trump will never set foot in the White House again as President of the United States or in any other capacity.
When asked if she felt Biden couldn't win, Pelosi said, "I thought his campaign that they were on couldn't win."
The most important decision of all is the candidate and the campaign of that candidate.
And you just felt he couldn't win?
No, I thought the campaign that they were on couldn't win. He might have won, but they had to change what was happening.
The question now, of course, is can Kamala Harris win? Robby?
She certainly can win. Will she win is really the main question. And I think Nancy Pelosi's certainty that Trump is not going to prevail is totally, out of step with where the polls and the betting markets are. But that's her prerogative. She sounds honestly a little proud of herself or her role or her power in being a key player in orchestrating Biden's exit. I don't think she regrets that at all. I think she thinks it's pretty cool that she had that level of influence. Am I misreading this?
No, I don't think you are at all. And I think, honestly, one of the reasons that people like Nancy Pelosi on the Democratic side and among her admirers is she's very, very tough and she uses power very ruthlessly and very strongly. And I think that pride that you're picking up on in her remarks is really the idea that she seems to have, that nobody else was willing to do what had to be done, to wield the knife, so to speak. And I do think, and you and I think, have talked about this before, Biden was pretty plainly going to lose. That debate in Atlanta back in June was a catastrophe, and we saw the polls dip in the aftermath. Now, I get the impression that Pelosi's view is A, Biden was surrounded by loyalists who were just delusional about his chances, and B, that even people who weren't delusional about his chances were being too timid about coming forward. She thinks that she essentially knocked him out, and I think she's largely right. She was certainly a very influential figure in doing it, and she believes, in my view rightly, that she has given her party more of a chance of retaining the White House by doing that.
Yeah, he had every intention of holding on, as far as I could tell. I, again, famously predicted that he would ultimately just hold on and then lose. That's what I was expecting. Even if the entire party moved against him, there was nothing they couldn't make him. The delegates were going to vote for him unless he told them not to do so. But the combination of the pressure from party leaders like Pelosi, from the donor class, led by George Clooney, and everyone else, did result in him deciding that his chances were just beyond any hope that he could win, and he did get out. And I think we don't hear very much from Joe Biden these days, which is for better or for worse. I actually think it's kind of for worse because there are very important national security things happening right now, and I don't think it's reassuring that we can't be trusted that the President of the United States is even awake at any given time during the workday. But when you do hear from him, he sounds a little bit resentful, I think. Or in denial about his old poll numbers. That came out during the View interview he did, where he thought, I think we were still, within range of kind of winning. It was just not true at all. You could have said that a year ago. Absolutely he was. This time, nope. But he thinks he could have been reelected, and he was going to give it the old college try, and Nancy Pelosi shut that down.
Yeah, I think in Biden's case, there is the human side of this, right? Which is he has pursued the presidency his entire lifetime. First ran in 1988. He finally gets there in 2020. he quickly has questions about not really his age in terms of what's on his birth certificate, but his cognitive abilities. Those questions are sharpened catastrophically for him in that debate, and he is essentially pushed out. And of course there is wounded pride and resentment about that. And I get that. Now, I think, whether one thinks I'm not sure that he's sleeping through the workday, but I do get that it's a tricky argument to make that he's not really fit for a second term, but he is somehow fit until January the 20th. That's a tricky argument to make. Just briefly, Robby, getting back to the Pelosi thing, as someone who appreciates the blood sport element of politics, I did enjoy at the Democratic National Convention the footage of Pelosi with, I think it was a sign with something like "Thank you, Joe" or something on it, and her joining in the chants rather anemically. I remember people on social media comparing it to a mafia boss showing up at the funeral of someone they'd had whacked, which was pretty much the sentiment, I think, at the time.
Very Cersei Lannister sipping wine as all her enemies get blown up in green flames. That's what it made me think of. That does it for us today on Rising. Thanks so much for tuning in, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you can hear your podcast. You can get that podcast fix. We'll be back with another installment of Rising tomorrow, and we'll see you then.